Hey everybody, welcome back to Plum Figgy. This is Tammy. Hope you're all doing well today. So we're going to start with number 2 highlights for the Junk Journal in July. Okay, so I went ahead and I had found some vintage sheets for sale on Facebook Marketplace, and they happened to arrive this day. So here, this is me just kind of unpacking them and yeah, just taking my first look, really. And at this point, I hadn't really decided that I would for sure use these, but I thought, well, let's see what I can do with them, and then the rest is kind of history, I guess. So yeah, just kind of really looking through everything, making sure I picked the ones that I think will look the best with each other. So I had bought 2 different listings. They had a listing for these, which were larger pieces, and then a listing for the smaller pieces. So here I decided to start with the yellow butterfly because I thought it was awfully cute, and I wanted to cover up that page there. And so first I knew I wanted to use the card that they had included to use for my journaling. So here I'm just trying to figure out which piece would look good for making a pocket with, and I really liked that pansy and how it looks next to that hello page right next to it. So I went ahead and chose that one. So I'm going to go ahead and rip that down to be the right size, and I'll back that with some paper and sew it, and then I'll turn that into a pocket. Okay, so that's ready to go, and before I sew that, I'm going to go ahead and collage the rest of the stuff. And so here I just thought, well, I'll go ahead and make a journaling card of sorts with some pieces from pieces that I had gotten there. So here I'm just taking a grocery paper bag, piece of one of those that was just in my scrap pile, and I'm just basically kind of layering little bits and pieces from the different sheets. So I really loved all these little roses from this one. There's unfortunately quite a lot of extra white space around them. That's not going to go to waste, don't worry, I didn't throw all that away, but for this little project I didn't want to have all that white space, so I'm just taking off every little bit that I can, really, so that I can use those. And essentially I'm just going to kind of go back and look through all of them kind of again and figure out what pieces I want to incorporate and how. And so that's pretty much what I did there. So I liked the blue, and I took off one of the daisies off the right side. I know it's hard to see that, I did take a piece of this. This one wasn't ripping the way that I expected it to. So yeah, I had a little bit of trouble with that. But I took a piece of that out, and then I ended up not using that one because I just didn't think it really went as well with the rest of the pieces that I pulled out. But anyway, so really like this one. It's just so sweet. So I don't think I've seen sheets like that before, but yeah, so I took that bigger piece and I just made it into a couple of smaller pieces that were a little bit more usable. And so here I'm just gonna lay the different pieces out that I have picked, and I'll use some glue stick to tack those down, but then I'll take that to the sewing machine and also around each piece. I do have white thread in my sewing machine at the moment, and so it's a little difficult to see the stitching, but that's okay with me because I think it turned out really well. And then this is a piece of I believe tracing paper, or maybe parchment paper, I'm not sure, but it's kind of a see-through piece of paper. And my intent here was I thought I was going to write something on there, which actually didn't end up happening, but in the end I'm happy with how it turned out. So here I'm just doing a bunch of sewing. I'm switching between a straight stitch and a zigzag stitch, and just basically going around the squares. And so yeah, so that's the first side. And then I decided, well, I still have quite a bit of fabric here to use, so I went ahead and started on a second side, and so now I'm just figuring out how I want these pieces to lay together, and I'll repeat that same process. So just laying things out, doing a fabric collage essentially, and then I'll take those to the sewing machine again. So I got my two pieces that were done with the patchwork, and so now I'm just gonna glue the two pieces together. And instead of what I thought was going to be a journaling card is now a messy patchwork of fabrics. And I also went ahead and sewed around this other piece to make the pocket, and so now I'm just gluing that down. And then, yeah, the little card will fit perfectly inside that pocket. And I wasn't done sewing. I did a zigzag stitch all the way around the perimeter just to make sure that everything's solid, and just to kind of add that final touch, really. So okay, so that's done. Now I'm trying to figure out how, now I'm gonna write a little bit about why this is the highlight for me today, or what that highlight means. And what it means is that getting that package of vintage fabrics was definitely the highlight of my day. So that's really what I'm writing about here, and yeah, my enjoyment of turning them into something really pretty and kind of shabby chic. And so since I ended up not writing on that piece of paper that I added to the journaling card, now I decided, well, let's go ahead and put some lace or something on there to kind of decorate that just a little bit more. So I'm just going through my bits of lace. I think I need to clean this bag out and rearrange with what I've got a whole bunch of lace, and there's a lot of lace in this bag that I just don't really want to use all that often, which is sad to say. I honestly, I need to do some destashing, and so anyway, that'll happen when I have time for it to happen. But here I'm just trying out a bunch of different pieces of lace, and then I found this one that I had forgotten that I had, and it was really perfect. It's so delicate. And so I'm just using some glue stick there to paste that down. And so now my intent was to put that on into the pocket, but it was too big. So at this point now I'm trying to figure out how to attach it to the page. And even though I wanted the other side to be the front, it's not going to be. Because I had enough fabric on that right side of the blue flower. So I ended up deciding just to sew that directly onto the page with a zigzag stitch, and it actually worked out pretty darn well. I'm really pleased with how it turned out, to be honest. So just a second, yeah, it was a little tricky to do because it's obviously in the book, but go. So just a quick little zigzag stitch, and Bob's your uncle. So there's day 2 for highlights. And now we're ready for day 3, botanicals. So I actually, well, first of all, I'm flipping through the book. I had wanted to go in order, but the page that was next was a watercolor page, and I didn't want to waste a watercolor page on something that I knew I wasn't going to watercolor or use paint or anything on. So I ended up finding another page later back in the book, and so I'll use that spread. So I guess I'll jump around a little bit in this journal, which is fine. It'll be a little more loosey-goosey than I had intended. So there you saw, I just pulled off some piano player roll of paper, and so I'm using that as my background. But it's so curled up that I have to spray it with water to kind of loosen the paper up and get it flat again. So that's what I'm doing here. Trying to I'm wiping off all the extra water so it'll dry a little faster. But off to the right you can see these are some flowers that were given to me in the beginning of the year, and so they've been pressing inside of a book for this last since I got them, and since I decided to save them. And so I decided to go ahead and pull those out and use them on this spread. So here you can see I've glued down the piano player roll, and here I have some tea bags that have been emptied, and so this is the leftover paper bags, and so I'm using those as kind of part of my background collage. Really loving the colors, and just, yeah, it's adding a lot of nice texture to the page. So just gonna glue those down, and then next after this I have a bit of fabric scraps that were left over from a different project that I decided to incorporate as well. So I'll add those as background, and then from there I'm just going to collage the flowers on top, and then that'll be day number 3, botanicals. And now we're at day number 4. Today is July 4th. Happy 4th of July, everybody. So the prompt for today is details, and I'll be honest, I really had to think about this one. But in the end, I went to a Daphne's Diary magazine that I had just purchased. It's the summer Daphne's Diary for 2021. And I just really loved this butterfly. I thought it was beautiful. And so I decided to go ahead and use that as the focal point for my piece today, or for today. And here I had pulled out this packing paper, and I wanted to back it with the packing paper, but then midstream I changed my mind on that because the packing paper was just a little bit more wrinkly than I had wanted to go with. So instead I found this old book page and glued it down to that instead. And actually the colors, and I had a bunch of flour, so I made another little journaling card. So I'll show you a better picture of that at the very end. But anyway, back to the butterfly. So just backed it onto there, and then these two pages here, I didn't love the colors, and they just weren't working for me the way that I kind of wanted them to, so I'm just going to cover up this one with the cracked paint. Yeah, I just wasn't feeling it. I don't know why. I do love that image, but for whatever reason it just wasn't working for me in this journal. So anyway, I just decided to go ahead and cover that up, and I'm really covering it up. Putting some masking tape down so that you don't see any peak of the blue color, and so making sure that that'll work. And then yeah, so I went and I found a quote on Pinterest, maybe on Pinterest, about details, because honestly I started at Google and just did a Google image search for details to see what would come up, and it was exactly what I expected, a lot of business type things, but there were a few good quotes. I guess I found it on Google Images. Anyway, I decided to go ahead and pull out my antique typewriter and type out the quote, and so here I'm doing it, and I made 2 mistakes this first time. One of the words went way long here, there you can see that, and then I also messed up, I used an underscore instead of a hyphen, because it's so hard to tell in these typewriters which is which, so I ended up having to do the typing twice, but in the end that's okay. It turned out better that way. Sometimes you just got to have a practice shot at it. So here we go for real, typing the one that I use in the end, and so I'll pause it in a second and you'll be able to read the quote. So got that all done. Now I'm just going to rip that off. And actually I typed that out on the back of a greeting card that I had gotten, and it was a great little material. And I decided it needed a little bit of a border, so I put some black soot, Tim Holtz black soot ink around the border of that. But I'm not done yet, so I thought it needed it a little bit more, so I pulled out my embroidery floss, and I'm going to go ahead and do some embroidery on top of the paper. And so now I'm just trying to figure out what color would look best, and I end up deciding on this dark charcoal gray color. I didn't want black. I wanted something a little bit lighter than black. But yeah, trying to decide. Details are good. So adding some more details to my, I guess, collage. I don't really know what to call it. My page here. And so yeah, just gonna do a bunch of messy stitching, which it turned out really kind of cool. So I'll just stop talking and let you watch. So now that's all done, and so now I just need to glue that onto my page, and I think it turned out really good. I'm really pleased with it. And so I went ahead and and I'm dating it, the original poem, or I guess it's a poem, called If I Were a Butterfly from the Daphne's Diary page. I went ahead and decided to put that on the back side of it. I didn't want to lose it completely. So here I'm just ripping that out, and then I needed to cover it with something. So I found some thin packing paper there. Yeah, I have my ceiling fan on high, so papers are flying everywhere. But yeah, I just decided to cover the back side with some of that packing paper, and I'll just glue down the other poem or quote. I don't know what it was, but and I'll pause it at the end so that you can read it if you like. that's gonna do it for me, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. And I'll check in again with another update on my Junk Journal July journal sometime in the middle of the week, and we'll have a few more days of journaling in there to show. So hope you guys are having fun if you're doing this as well, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.